It's a new year, which means new teams in MLS, new players coming in, obviously a new coat here for my partner.
Well, partner, if you still have a receipt, you could probably return that one.
Well, I think I lost the receipt a long time. The writers are on strike, but Shep and I are still here. It's 2008, and we're looking forward to the new season. Hey everybody, welcome to MLSnet.com's Extra Time. Alongside Shep Messing, I'm your host, Greg LALAS, and today we're going to get right into the rumor mill. A little bit later on, we'll talk about the Combine coming up, but so much going on. The transfer window is open. We're going to start in D.C., where rumor says that Gonzalo Peralta is coming up from Argentina. It's very close to a deal, but what's going on with Christian Gomez and Jaime Moreno?
Well, I'm not that excited about Peralta, second division Argentine player, but in terms of Jaime Moreno, Christian Gomez, I think those are the key decisions that DC United has to make. If they can control their own destiny, both players rumored to be going to Qatar, Arab Emirate, going for the big money.
Right. Well, if they can do that, I mean, I think Christian Gomez especially is a player they need to keep in the midfield. They didn't bring in Juan Sebastian Veron, which some people thought was going to happen. To me, I think they need to keep Gomez in. There was a rumor maybe he was going to go to Colorado. That fell through. It's a player they need in their midfield. Now, in the midfield for New England, they've lost a player. Andy Dorman has gone over to St. Mirren in Scotland, right? New England. Do they have to replace that?
Well, I think they do. We talked about it last year when they moved Ralston into the central midfield role to take the place of Dorman. He wasn't playing well, so I think that they're going to miss Dorman. They have to replace him. Dorman got the money, but you know he didn't go to a better league than Major League Soccer.
No, he certainly didn't. And St. Mirren is in 11th place out of 12 in Scotland. He's got his work cut out for him. Not even also dealing with the weather, not even just dealing with the play on the field. Another player, ALECKO ESKANDARIAN from Real Salt Lake. He was in Belgium for a little while. That looks like that's fallen through. Maybe a trade going to happen with Esky in MLS. But you also have to think about some bigger names that might be going overseas. Eddie Johnson, there's a rumor he might be going. Brad GUZAN, the goalkeeper for Chivas USA. That was reported this week, actually, that he might be going to Celtic.
Yeah, let's talk goalkeepers, because right now, I've spent a lot of time in England. Tim Howard is the best goalkeeper in the Premiership, and European teams all across the board, they're looking for big time, the next American goalkeeper. Brad GUZAN, Celtic, you talked about. I'm here in Arsenal. So whether he goes in the January window or whether he stays until the summer, I think Brad GUZAN is on his way.
And let's not forget Troy Perkins from D.C. also went over to Denmark in the offseason, and he's already gone $750,000 in that deal. Let me ask you, you're an old goalkeeper. Do you think that GUZAN has the goods to play, let's say, in the Premier League over there?
Yeah, I think in time. I think he's a work in progress, but I think he's got all the physical tools. I think he's what the European clubs are looking for. Big, strong, agile, good hands. They're looking for the next Tim Howard. Brad Friedel's still doing well, so I like GUZAN. I think he's going to make it.
Well, they're looking for the American goalkeepers, but is an American team looking for Luis Figo? There's a rumor that LA Galaxy is maybe looking at Figo. I'm not a big fan of this. He's 35 years old. I'm not sure he's really coming for the right reasons. I mean, at least Beckham was 32 and can still play and trying to get onto the national team.
Yeah, give me a break. If he's 35, he plays like he's 38. I think it's all about Hawaii, the Pan Pacific tournament. He wants to go there and play. But I'm not a fan of Figo. I loved Figo many years ago as a player. I don't think he's the type of player that Major League Soccer in general or the Galaxy in particular need.
Well, still 3 weeks to go in the transfer window. I'm sure some moves are going to happen, so keep your eye out for that. The other side is to go through the draft, and there have been some teams that have done very well in the draft. New England comes to mind right away. They've built a great team out of the draft over the last 4 or 5 years. Stevie Nicol doing a great job up there assessing talent. So this week, the Combine takes place down in Florida, and you know, let's talk a little bit about what the coaches and the GMs are looking for when they go down to a Combine.
Greg, I think it's really an area for Major League Soccer where there's room for improvement, because most of the coaches and GMs, presidents of the clubs, don't do a lot of videotape analysis. They don't get to see the players really enough. So this
Combine, and they also don't have great scouting networks, really.
Absolutely, right. But this Combine then affords them an opportunity. They've heard about the players, they've heard some tidbits, but they get to see the players for real on the field. Really is crunch time trying to make that decision.
And also when they see them, they're sitting next to their colleagues from another team, and they might see a guy they like, and they can look over and say, hey, how'd you like to maybe make a deal so I can get a little further up and get that guy that I like?
That's a good point, because philosophically, I think every team in Major League Soccer has a different approach. Some look at this draft as a bargaining tool to acquire chips that they can trade. Others, you talked about Stevie Nicol, Paul Mariner, the group up in New England, they've really done a great job building, selecting players and keeping them. So everybody has a different approach.
Well, and the other side of this, is, of course, is that, you know, when you go into this combine, what are you looking for? You're basically looking for depth, and you're also looking for role players. You're going to get your big money players, your big name players, as we always talk about, up the spine. You're going to get those guys from transfers, or you're going to trade with another team for that. But you're really looking for something else at the draft.
Yeah, there's no question. Role players, so positionally, I mean, you're looking at defenders first, outside backs. You're really not looking for creative playmakers. You're not looking for strikers unless there's an exceptional player out there. It's role players they're looking for.
And unfortunately, this draft, there really aren't that many exceptional players. This, you know, I talked to several coaches and GMs around the league, and the first thing they said is, this is not very deep, this draft. So you're looking at this combine, there are some great players. If there's any depth in this draft at all, it's in the defensive position. And you've got guys like John Leathers, David Horst, and Sean Franklin. And these are guys who are either PDL Defensive Player of the Year, under 23 guys in Franklin and Leathers, both brought in by Peter Novak. The big name, though, in the defensive core is Julius James from Connecticut.
Yeah, and I think rightfully so. I've seen him play a number of times.
He's awesome.
This kid's a stud. I mean, physically, he's got all the tools. He's got the size, has the strength, has the intelligence, has the quickness. I spoke to UConn coach Ray Reed about him, and he said, you know what you see on the field physically, that's great, but character-wise, you know, I'd like this kid to be my son. That's how highly he thinks about him.
Well, he's certainly a top 5 pick for some team. Maybe a Real Salt Lake could use him back there. Or maybe it's Dallas. You know, they lost Clarence Goodson in the draft. They could use him as a center back in there. I think we have to talk about Julian Valentine. He's been with the national team under 20s, under 23s. I have some questions about whether he has the speed to do much in MLS. But there's also Patrick Phelan, his teammate at Wake Forest, who I've talked to some guys who've said, you know, he's that kind of player. He's intelligent. He's smart. You know, he reads the game well. He could be a pro for a very long time.
Greg, it's really no different than any other sport. The coaches are trying to analyze a player like that and say, can he do it at the next level, right? I mean, you could do it against college players, but the speed, the intensity, the sense of urgency of the game, it requires a little bit different, and that's what they're trying to judge.
Well, the combine starts this week, and it's going to go until the draft is on the 18th. So there are going to be some moves that are going to happen over the next week, but keep an eye out on that draft, because I think it's going to be some interesting things when the Generation Adidas guys get involved too. Well, every week we get questions and comments and fashion advice from you guys, and this week, Ernest in Oak Park, Illinois, Shep, has a question about Chicago. I've heard a lot of names mentioned for the Chicago coaching job. What's taking so long to make a decision?
Well, Ernest, the obvious choice, Peter Novak, he wasn't available. He's with the Olympic team. I think John Guppy in Chicago, he's a seasoned, savvy executive, so he's going to be very thorough in his search. Greg, I think he's interviewed 7 different guys.
Well, he certainly has. John Spencer, Dennis Helmuth, the assistant coach, Frankie Klopas, Paul Mariner from New England, even Hristo Stoichkov was mentioned as coming in. But what are you hearing in terms of the final deal?
Well, first of all, I'd love to see Stoichkov in a temperamental, heated, volatile argument with Blanco in the locker room.
You could film that and the ratings would be off the chart.
But I'm hearing it's really down to Spencer or Dennis Hamlet. And I think Guppy, in the end, he'll make the right decision.
Well, both of them good choices. Hamlet speaks Spanish, has been with Chicago for a long time. That would certainly help with Blanco. John Spencer coming from a very winning tradition down in Houston. Either way, it's going to be a great choice. Ernest, I hope you're happy with the choice it's made and you get out to Toyota Park and watch them, because last year Chicago was great to watch. If anybody else has questions or comments, please email us at extratime@mlsnet.com. We'll try to get to as many of those as possible. Unfortunately, Shep, we are out of time. So before we go, though, it's New Year. Give me a resolution for 2008.
Hey, Ronaldinho to Major League Soccer.
Well, geez, that would be nice. Almost as nice as if an MLS team could actually win the Champions Cup again. If any of that happens, you know we'll be here all season long, but we'll also be here next week to discuss the draft proper. Join us next week. Shep will be here, I will be here, and we'll kick it around.